1 year ago, I bought my second Tesla, this 2026 Model Y Juniper, and now with over 24,000 miles on it, using it as my family's daily driver and on multiple thousand-mile-plus road trips, I'm going to go through what it's actually been like to live with this car, what stood out to me, how my initial thoughts have played out, the maintenance, how my charging habits have changed, and generally what I've learned about this car over the past year. Here's what it's been like. So I'll start with just some of my overall thoughts on this car. I've been driving Teslas now for 7 years. I still have my 2019 Model 3, so that's kind of the baseline when I think about this one. After 1 year and 24,000 miles, my overall impression of this car is that it's just more refined. In my initial video that I did when I first got this car, the two biggest things I mentioned were how smooth it is and how quiet it is compared to my earlier Tesla, and that hasn't changed. The ride is just more composed, the cabin is noticeably quieter. And reliability-wise, nothing's gone wrong with this car in the first 24,000 miles. It's been completely solid. Now, this car does have the acceleration package. I know that that's not something that everybody cares about. I personally think it's cool. Motor Trend clocks this car at 0 to 60 in 3.8 seconds. And Car and Driver says it does it in 3.9. To me, that's just phenomenal. I've been quicker, but this is a family car. And to have that kind of power in a daily driver, I just think that that's really, really cool. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the efficiency of this car and what my charging habits are. I think that this piece is really interesting. The lifetime average on my 2019 Model 3 is 250 watts per mile, and the lifetime average on this car so far is also 250 watts per mile. And you would think, well, that makes sense, they're similar cars. But you have to realize this Model Y is 850 pounds heavier than my Model 3, mainly because of the bigger battery. I have a standard range battery in the other car, and this is the long range battery. And this car is taller, it's higher profile, so there's more air getting under it, and it just sticks up higher. And yet the efficiency is still the same. So to me, that just shows how much more efficient the Tesla engineers have been able to make these cars over time. All the little refinements they've made have basically negated nearly 1,000 pounds extra on this car, and the fact that it's a bigger vehicle. So kudos to them. I'm impressed. Now 250 watts per mile works out to about 4 miles per kilowatt hour, which is how your electricity is billed. And the national average right now is hovering right around 17 cents per kilowatt hour. Whatever you pay, you basically just divide that by 4 to get your per mile electricity cost. And then on my last trip, my average supercharger rate was about 38 cents per kilowatt hour. So if you're doing road trips, it's going to be some sort of blend between your home rate and those supercharger rates. Now, as far as how I charge from day to day, I get asked about this a lot. I have 2 Tesla wall connectors in my garage, one for each car. And I just get out of the car, I plug it in, it's a one-handed thing, and I walk away. And I usually charge to 80%. Most days, I'm not going to probably use more than 30% of the battery. Really don't have to charge it up to 80%, but that's what I do. And as long as I'm not driving more than about 300 miles in a day, which is kind of the max range on this car, I don't use anything other than my home charger. Now, if I'm going on a really long road trip, the bigger battery helps a lot compared to the smaller battery that I was used to. And that was one of the big reasons that I got this car, was for the bigger battery. It's about 50% bigger. With this car, if I pull into a charger at 10%, I have 10% of the battery remaining, and I charge up to 60%, so I'm basically adding 50% of the capacity back. I can do that in 18 minutes. And that gives me about 2 hours of highway driving at 70 miles per hour. If I sit there longer, I can get up to 90%, and that takes about 35 minutes, and that would give me 3 hours instead of 2. So I'll talk a little bit about the maintenance and how the car's held up so far. You know, 24,000 miles, I wouldn't expect to have to do anything on any new car at 24,000 miles. And that's been the case with this car. I haven't had any issues with it, no recalls. It hasn't gone to Tesla. I haven't had Tesla come out to me. Everything's been fine. I've added windshield washer fluid to it, and that's been the extent of the maintenance on this car. No oil changes, obviously. If this was a combustion car, probably would have had to have had 2 or 3 oil changes by now. And the brakes, I wouldn't have expected to have brake work done at 24,000 miles on any car, but you'd be 24,000 miles closer to having to do some sort of brake work. You know, on these things, we use the regenerative braking. Almost 100% of the braking is on that. So the traditional hydraulic disc brakes hardly ever get any wear. My Model 3 has 90,000 miles on it and still has the original brakes, and they look new. The tires on this car are doing pretty well. I've rotated them at the recommended 6,250 mile interval, and I do that myself. I'm approaching my 4th rotation on these, and that schedule would suggest a 50,000 mile lifetime on these tires. That's kind of what they're anticipating based on that 6,250. They're wearing a little bit more on the edges than my Model 3 did. It reminds me a little bit of my minivan that we used to have, the Honda Odyssey. That thing went through tires terrible. They just really wore bad on the outsides. This car is heavier than the Model 3, and it's taller, so it probably has a little bit higher center of gravity. And it's just kind of eating away at the edges a little bit more than I'd like to see. I keep them at 42 pounds, and we'll just see how they do. My Model 3, I changed them, I think, at 54,000 miles. Okay, windshield washer fluid. Sounds absolutely ridiculous to talk about, and in reality, it's maybe cost me an extra $8 in the whole time that I've had the car. This thing goes through a lot of windshield washer fluid because it constantly wants to keep the self-driving cameras clean. It comes on automatically, and it will spray the windshield and move the wipers back and forth in the center about where the cameras are. And then it also has windshield washer fluid that shoots out on the front bumper camera. Does that automatically. I have no control over it, and so it just uses a lot more fluid than what you'd ordinarily think. The only other thing is I have noticed a little bit of a rattle sometimes from the back seat. 90-some% of the time it doesn't do it, but every once in a while I'll hear it back there, can't quite figure out where it's coming from, doesn't do it long enough for me to figure out, doesn't do it long enough for me to really make an appointment, because chances are it won't be making it when they drive it to see where the noise is coming from. Full self-driving. I do not want this to turn into an FSD video, but I do have a lifetime subscription to FSD on this car, and I use it 99% of the time. In other words, it's engaged, hands off the wheel, feet off the pedal, and the car's driving itself. And a lot of my highway driving is 100% FSD, from the time that I leave my house to the destination. And it's gotten to the point where the car will get off the highway on its own, back into a supercharger stall, and all I have to do is get out and plug it in. Most disengagements I have are small navigation things. It's not doing anything necessarily dangerous. It's more like things like trying to merge over into a lane that's ending and it needs to get back over. So I may disengage just to keep in the lane that I'm already in. 2 things that I'll say about FSD, and then we'll move on. Number 1, you just feel more rested when you get somewhere. I enjoy driving, but not necessarily in stop-and-go traffic or situations where traffic lights are every few hundred feet or driving straight down the highway for hours at a time. And when you arrive, you just feel less stress and less on edge when you've been using full self-driving. And second, I truly believe that I'm safer with FSD. It's possible that it could make a mistake, and it's possible that I could make a mistake. But as long as I'm attentive, I think that we're better as a team. I don't have eyes in the back of my head, but the car can see 360 degrees. It doesn't get tired, doesn't get distracted, doesn't care if the kids are screaming in the back seat. So those 2 things, the reduced stress and the added safety, those are the biggest buckets for me. And we can always talk about this more in detail in another video, but that's been my experience. So one big factor in buying this car is that I wanted more space in the back seat for my kids. When we got the Model 3, they were like 2 and 4 years old, and since then, their legs have grown. They've just got bigger, and we needed more space. And while nothing's going to beat a minivan for second row comfort, this car really does have a lot of leg room, a lot of headroom that they didn't have in the Model 3. It's easy to get in and out of. Their legs and feet can extend. You can get your feet under the front seats in this car. The rear seats have the power recline. They don't go back a lot, but it does help on a long trip if they want to nap. The roof in this car is beautiful with the full panoramic glass. I don't really get to take advantage of that while I'm driving up in the front, but from the back it's a great view with all of that glass up there. The screen down here, I kind of thought that this was going to be sort of a gimmicky thing. It's a small screen, it's down low. I didn't think that they would really use it a lot. The screen back here allows them to adjust the air, and it shows them how far it is to the next destination. So if they ask how much longer, I can say, look at your screen. The screen also has the ability to tap into your streaming services while you're driving, so they have Netflix and Disney Plus and all that stuff that we subscribe to already. We always had them take their tablets with them in the car, and they can still do that, but I find for quick trips when they don't have those with them, they like using the built-in screen more than I thought that they would. They can use Bluetooth headphones with this. They can connect up to 3 devices. I let them keep earbuds in the car. They just always stay in here. They don't take up very much room, and those can connect so I don't have to hear whatever they're watching back there. Or if one of them's wanting to watch that screen, another one's wanting to watch something else, you know, the noise isn't bothering the other kid. I also have these brackets that fit on the back of the seat, and you can place an iPad or a Nintendo Switch in these, but honestly, they usually just like holding the devices anyway. One drawback that I've had, and I anticipated this when I bought the car, and I just hoped that I would be wrong, but I really haven't been wrong about it. It's the perforated seats. So the front seats in this car are ventilated, and they have these small perforations. And to match that look, even though the back seats are not ventilated, they have these tiny holes in them as well. And so those collect crumbs and fuzz and just junk, and it's hard to keep them clean. In my other Tesla, I could take like a wrung out soapy dish rag and wipe the seats down and they'd look new again. And with this, it's just a bit harder to keep these clean. So what else can I say about this car? I have slept in it. I have a video out there on my channel that shows how I set the car up to spend the night in it if I'm on the road tonight and I want to do that. But yeah, overall, generally, I'm really pleased with this car. I'm biased, obviously, it's my car, I'm going to be biased. But I think that this gives you a pretty realistic picture of what it's been like for me over the past year and 24,000 miles. And I'd recommend it. You know, if the car would fit your lifestyle, I'd certainly recommend this car. My Tesla advice to anybody is really simple. It's don't listen to all the clickbait garbage that is plastered all over the place out there. There's so much of it. The battery is going to die and cost you $20,000 to replace. You're going to get stranded. It's going to take forever to charge it. And these narratives are just exaggerated to the point of being silly. I've been driving these things for 7 years now, about 115,000 miles combined. I have about 90,000 miles on the Model 3 and 25,000 miles on this, and 24,000 miles on this. And I have a video out there on my Model 3 at 85,000 miles. It goes over the longevity of the car and what I've dealt with on that car in great detail. But yeah, I really enjoy this car. I wouldn't ever go back to a combustion car. You know, if I had to have a truck or something for work, sure. But just for a car to drive the family around, I wouldn't go back away from a battery electric car. So I guess that's all I have. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you down the road.